library staff will help you out. So thank you very much for that. I would just like to say it's fantastic to see so many people here today. As I said, this is the last in the lecture series, but it's been a fantastic opportunity to partner with the Art Gallery to bring fantastic lectures, artists and designers to the city of Aberdeen. The creative industries is a really important component of our creative economy, and to bring this into the lives of many, many more people through the collaboration is a fantastic thing. This collaboration is also a collaboration with our students as well. And there's a few names that I want to mention in terms of thanks. There's a few students that are here today. Emma Jane Kingerby, who is our school officer, who's part of the committee and managing program for the Guests at Gray's lecture series. Alice Langman, Alice MacDonald, Neve Hughes, and Lauren Ross. Just a round of applause for them, I think, would be really quite nice. So, this is the last in the series. How fantastic it is to have one of our alumni here today talking, AJ Simpson, a graduate of the three-dimensional design course at Gray's and a ceramicist to boot. Not many people know that actually ceramics was one of the areas that I thought I might go into myself. My first degree was in metals, wood, and ceramics, but everything kept blowing up in the kiln for me. So watching AJ on Great Pottery Throwdown was really a sort of nail-biting thing for me, thinking about how many things were going to turn out in whole from the baking session in the kiln. But actually truly fantastic that we have a graduate from Gray's who went into the Great Pottery Throwdown and actually was fantastic all the way throughout, was a great competitor, and you could see the confidence of the work shining through of them in terms of the way in which they handled the stardom throughout the show. Fantastic to win. Fantastic to Aberdeen as well. I know that AJ is very much involved in the development of the Aberdeen Ceramics Studio. That's another important development for the city of Aberdeen, in which they are partnering with other ex-students and members of staff and technical staff in the school. And that's going to be something that's going to grow, and it's really important, I think. So, to AJ. I think that you can see all of their work on show here today. I actually looked at their website today and everything's sold out, so I'm not going to be buying anything soon. So, further ado, I'd love to welcome AJ to the stage, and with Madeline Ward, Head of Collections, who is going to be hosting the talk today. So, thank you very much for your indulgence, and I hope you enjoy the talk.
Hello. We'd just like to start by saying that we've never done this before. No. So please do bear with us. Thank you, Libby, for that wonderful introduction. So yeah, I get the privilege of spending the next 45 minutes or so talking with AJ Simpson. We've got quite a lot of ground to cover. We'll be looking at AJ's pottery heroes. We'll talk through their working style. And of course, we might mention that little bit of a show. I don't know if anyone can remember what it was called. But I'd like to start by kind of heading back to the beginning, where it all began, and sort of those ideas as to where that relationship with clay, that love of clay, came from.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that I came out the womb modeling clay, but I didn't actually touch clay until I went to Gray's. It wasn't something I really enjoyed in primary school and that sort of thing, because we had that horrible hairy air dry clay, and I just hated how it felt. And then going into uni, I didn't really think it would be something that I'd enjoy modeling wise. I'd always wanted to try throwing on a wheel because I thought it looked really fun, But yeah, until sort of like first year of uni, I hadn't really done anything with clay, and then sort of had that first workshop and was like, oh, this is actually like, it's actually pretty fun. Like, I want to get better at this. And so I started like going to uni in doing my classes, and then in the evening going to like the throwing workshop when nobody was there, and like just playing around with clay, really.
So I remember the first time that we met, you said to me that you'd done art at school.
Yeah.
But it was all about the drawing. So is there a relationship at all between the drawing and the clay?
Yeah, definitely. I think like in school I was like doing painting, and then when I went to Gray's, I went there for 3D design, so it was mostly like modeling, and I thought I was going to come out being like a product designer, and then ended up coming out making like clay creatures. So I don't know what like went on there, but yeah, I think like especially with like my more figurative like sort of blob work, it comes from sort of like illustration. Like in high school, I was always drawing. I loved cartoons. I always had like a sketchbook in my blazer pocket that I would just take out and like draw at lunchtimes and break times and that sort of thing. So it just comes from like a love of like drawing faces and like having all these different expressions. Like how much expression can I get into this like little creature with like the least amount of clay, just like 2 eyeballs and a mouth?
And you certainly do.
Well, yeah.
So that time at Gray's then, were there key moments where you could say that was when you had a particular development or a change in direction during that kind of training, learning experience?
Yeah. I think 2019 was like my sort of turnaround from product design to ceramics. I kind of had this sort of couple months where I was really sort of figuring things out and where I wanted to go. Like I was getting into 3rd year, I was getting into 4th year, like things were getting serious, and I needed to decide what my like discipline was going to be for graduating. And then I went to Denmark for 2 weeks on like a ceramics trip with a bunch of people from uni. And I went there, and there was all these like wonderful people in this like international ceramics center doing like sculpture and like pottery and wood firing. And that was, you know, seeing all these people doing that for their career, it was just amazing. And I came away from that thinking like, you know, this is possible to make into a career, and like I could do this if I'm passionate enough, and if I put the work in, I could do this forever, like all these people have been doing.
So we're definitely getting a sense of a recommendation for a trip to Denmark.
Yeah,
anybody
just go on a trip somewhere, get inspired.
So you made that transition then from drawing to clay.
Yeah.
You'd had the experience in Denmark. Were you at a point by then when you could start to sum up what that relationship with clay meant to you?
Yeah, I think it was like when I was in uni, a lot of what I wanted to create was very based on like form rather than like texture or color or like function. Like I really just liked making different shapes and like figuring out how to make it and challenging myself. And clay was just a really great way to do that. Like it can be so immediate, and like the whole process is quite long. Like you've got to make it and dry it and fire it and glaze it and dry it again and fire it again. But that initial sort of like putting clay in your hands and making something, it's so immediate, and it's so like satisfying to see the form you want to make just like build in front of you. It's great. Yeah, I wouldn't choose anything else.
And when you got to that point of graduation then, did you have a clear plan as to where next, what next?
I think like from like coming out of uni, I'd done like the trip to Denmark, and I did a placement in Caithness for 2 months as well, where I went and I did like a placement there with this potter up at North Shore Pottery, where she just like showed me the ropes and like gave me all this material and like free tuition, and then I manned her shop for her. And just getting that sort of whole ceramic experience was brilliant. So I came out of uni with this sort of like mindset of I've just got to like take what opportunities come to me, because even the ones that I've done so far and that have scared me have ended up being like the best times of my life. So I was just like, I'm just going to try everything and see where it gets me. And then my lecturer, Matt, sent me the application for the throwdown, and I thought, well, why not? I might as well just just try and go for it and see what happens, and then got a phone call back.
Oh. So for all current Grays students here, whatever your lecturer Matt tells you to do it, because it does work out.
Trust, yeah.
Pretty well. So I know we've spoken a bit, in fact, just in the green room now, about that period when you'd graduated, but you knew about, you were waiting for the show to air, and you were balancing that period of having to work to survive, but still wanting to practice. Could you talk a bit about that?
It was kind of like, it's a weird place to be when you've got like a small business, but you're also like working part-time. Like when I graduated, I was basically just like straight into the throwdown. It was only like maybe a month or two after I graduated. So straight into that, and then after throwdown, I had this sort of period of about 3 months where I was working retail, but I knew that the throwdown was coming out. So I was thinking like, right, I've got my small business, so I'm going to keep that going like this many days a week, and I'm going to work this many days a week, and I can do stuff in the evenings. I can fit that around there. And it was just like, it was really difficult to manage, but still really rewarding, because I still had people like, I had my Instagram set up already, and I had like a little Etsy shop, and like friends and family would ask for things, and so that was really, really good. And then after a while, the when the throwdown came out, I had a sort of much wider audience, so people started asking for things more, and it got to the point where I was working, like people were asking me for pots more than they were asking me for jackets where I was working. So I started to think like, maybe I should like think about doing pottery full time. And it was quite scary, because it was like, can I like pay my rent with this, with just doing clay and doing all the fun stuff? But it just sort of, I was like, if I don't do it now, then when am I going to do it? Like, this is the best time to take the plunge.
Absolutely.
And if it doesn't work out, then I can always like, I can get another retail job, but when am I going to get another opportunity like this? So I've just gone for it, and I'm still sort of figuring out how it's going, but so far it's going really well.
I think we can definitely say the pot jacket balance is in the favour.
A lot more
of the
people
pots
asking
now.
for pots.
And so with this kind of burgeoning business in Aberdeen, where is it that you work out of now then?
Yeah, so I work at D-Mouth Art Studios. I've got my own studio there, and I got that just after graduating uni. I was really lucky that I had a space open when I asked, just like a week after graduating. So I was like straight in there, got my kiln, or at least I had my kiln already because I've been working from home for a while. So like working through lockdown was really difficult because I was just working out of a shed. And it was all like, it was in the snow. I think I've got a picture on here at some point where you see where I've like shoveled out the snow to get to my kiln. But like, yeah, so because of that, I kind of had a lot of the equipment I needed already that I bought during lockdown. So brought that into the space. My dad helped me up the stairs with this kiln, like getting that in there. And then just sort of went there as much as I possibly could, really. Yeah, it's been great. There's a great community there.
So you mentioned lockdown, and I know we've chatted about lockdown before, and kind of that fear of running out of clay.
Yeah.
Like?
It was a strange time, obviously, like for everybody, but I had like, I think probably about like 2, maybe 3 bags of clay at a push that I'd like taken from uni in that week where everyone was like, right, you're going home and you're not coming back and we don't know when you're coming back. Take the clay, take the stuff home. So I like took these bags of clay home, and I was making stuff for uni, but also making stuff for me. And I was thinking, right, I've only got like a little amount of clay, and I don't know when I'm going to get to fire these, but I know I've got a placement coming up. So I can fire them then. So I'm sitting and I start making these blobs because I've been thinking about these things since I'd been to Denmark. So it'd been sort of like months where I'm thinking, like, how can I make these and how can I make them like sort of like recreatable. So I'm sitting at my desk and I'm making these like tiny blobs that are maybe only about an inch tall. And I ended up making loads of them, and then they slowly, like, as I got access to more clay, they slowly got bigger and slowly got like funkier, and then they got a bit more sort of coherent, and then they got like really weird again. And I was posting pictures on Instagram, and I had like friends and family like, oh, can you make me like some blobs that are baking, or can you make me like a cat blob for my girlfriend? And I was like, sure, I can do that. Like, great. So yeah, it just kind of grew from there, and then I did the throwdown, and all of that. All of these sort of experiences informed like how I make things today. Yeah.
So in a way, then we've got lockdown to thank for the blobs.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned earlier the trip to Denmark, and I think sort of some of the people that you might describe as being your maybe pottery heroes, meeting them there, and the experience there also feeding into that more figurative use of clay.
Yeah, for sure. I had like the sort of Denmark experience where I had these sort of like sculptors. There was like Eva Funderburg and there was Sten Madsen there, who were kind of like inspiring me to start doing more figurative stuff. And then after that, I had my placement in the Highlands, where I really got a lot better at throwing. So the lady there, she would throw like these massive like moon jar pots, and like I still don't know how she does it, but they were just like, they were so inspiring, and I got like my like wall thickness and stuff on my pots were a lot better, because I would throw things and it would go like this thick to this thin at the top. So yeah, I learned so much from that, and that kind of informed my granite stuff and the stuff that I do that's more just like plainer, like bowls and cups, less like funky faces. But yeah, that and Matthew Blakely brought out a book on rock glazes, which I learned about through uni, which was really inspiring. So you can find me like going around the woods, like picking up rocks and taking them home.
So then that idea of being out, walking locally in the natural, well, I suppose quite an urban environment, that has also informed your work.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Like, I love going around and like exploring places. I'll go out to like out to the beach or out to the cliffs, like at like Cruden Bay or Colliston and stuff, and just take loads of photos. And I think that sort of also take rocks home in my pocket, and that kind of like informs what my work's going to be. And I just like experimenting with materials and like where that material comes from, like trying to get people to, or trying to make pottery that people can connect to, because the materials of it has come from their sort of local environment. That was my sort of like final works at Gray's, was like taking local clays and slips and glazes and like using them on like local pottery, sort of bringing it back to local rather than global.
And just to go back to the blob briefly, so I know you've mentioned previously the idea that with your work, wanting it to have some form of function, but then with the blob, functionless.
Yeah.
So what, are the blobs evolving in
Yeah,
any
they're
way?
sort of like, they're like growing arms and legs, you could say. They're kind of like, it kind of comes from that making something that somebody can connect to. Like I never had a problem selling my work. I was always like, oh yeah, it's a bowl, it's a nice bowl, take the bowl. But now when I make things, and I make things with faces on, it's like I'm making a creature, I'm making like a pet or a person, and I'm like, oh, take my baby, please take care of it. Like it's quite bizarre to sort of like make all of these faces that you sort of like, you spend so long with them and you start to relate to them, and then when it's like, I'm quite annoyed at myself that I've made something that I now find hard to sell, because I end up keeping things. But yeah, they've kind of like grown from this sort of sculptural thing into something that I can make functional, which I really enjoy, having that sort of style of making that I can bring into sculpture and functional like homewares, because I just want to put faces on everything now.
And you were telling me about the latest ask for what sort of themed wedding was it?
Oh yeah, there was somebody who messaged me on Instagram and they were saying that they were having a Dungeons and Dragons themed wedding, and could I make some pots for them for their wedding, like blob pots in Dungeons and Dragons theme. I was like, well, only if I can come to the wedding, because that sounds amazing.
I think you've got quite a few people here that would like to go to the wedding.
Yeah,
as well.
I'll see if we can get us all invited, because it sounds great.
So then, on to that small matter of the television program, that bit of a something. So we know why you applied. You were told to.
Yeah.
But
Something
what for those of us that haven't ever put ourselves out there and applied for a television program,
Yeah.
what's the actual process like?
It was quite a long process, but looking back, it was actually quite fast at the same time. Like, we had the initial sort of online application, and it was this really long sort of like, write about your life, write about your work, like what do you do, who are you, why do you do it, which like in itself like was useful for me anyway, because it kind of got me to look through all the work that I'd been doing at home and at university, and like, what do I like about this, and why do I do it, and what do I want to take forward. So even just the application itself was valuable to me. And then sent that away and got a phone call back, which was bizarre. And I was like, have you got the right person? Like, and then I had like a phone interview, and then we had like a Zoom interview, and then eventually like got a call that I was going down to London for the day to do like sort of tester day. I don't know how many people they take down, but they basically like pick out like loads of people to go down and like play with clay on camera and see how they are. And then after that, got another phone call, and I was like, it's fine. This is fine. Like, I'm over it. I'm over it. It's fine. I don't have it, and it's fine. And then I remember I was in the garden at the time, and he phoned me, and the guy said like, oh yeah, we'd like you for the show. And I was thinking, are you sure?
like talk yourself out of it.
It's AJ. Like, you got the wrong person. And he was like, yeah, no. So you come down like this day, and then they're like, you got the plane. You're ready to go. And I was like, okay, get in the plane. Okay. And yeah, it was just like, it was terrifying, but it was also very, very exciting.
I bet. And so when it all actually starts and the filming starts, are you there the whole time, or are you traveling between there and home?
Yeah.
Because obviously we just see an episode.
Yeah, I think like for the people that did it last year, it was very different to the people who did it this year, because they obviously filmed it like during very heavy lockdown, so they were all there for the whole time. But we were sort of a bit more free in that we could come back and forth to home. But for me and for Anna, who is from Ireland, it was quite like a long way to get home. So for the people who lived sort of like a couple hours away, it was just like, oh, come along, and then stay there for 3 days. It was like 3 days per episode, and then drive home for 2 hours, and then it was fine. But for me and Anna, it was like, you've got to fly home, and then you've got about a day at home, and then you fly back again. So it was really like, come home, empty the suitcase, put everything in the washing, go play with clay for a bit, do the design, and come back again. And then it was just like, it was actually really great to have that time to just completely focus on clay. Like, I felt really privileged to be able to just have that sort of 9 weeks really to just completely focus on like clay and making things and playing around and meeting all these amazing people, and yeah, it was great.
And so then in between each 3-day slot of filming,
Yeah.
are you kind of sent home with your suitcase and all your laundry and the brief for the next program? So you're full on planning and plotting and everything.
Literally,
there.
yeah. We got the briefs like for the main challenge, not the like surprise challenge, like a week or two in advance. So when I went down the first time, we had like the first 2, and then came back, and you would come back with like a new brief for maybe not the next week, but the week after. So you're like, right, I've got to prepare like just in case I get through for that week. Like, I've got to have a vague idea. And then I did get through to the next week, and I was like, oh God, now I've got to actually make this. Like, this isn't good, this isn't practical, I've got to take that bit off, and that bit won't work, and I need to change that. Like, it was very, like, frantic almost, like in the hotel, like between flights, like drawing out bridges and urinals and like weird totem pole things, like.
So we're seeing this serene hour-long TV program where you're just focusing blissfully on that episode, but in reality, your mind's covering several different things.
Yeah, like making gnomes, but also thinking about teapots and like, what am I going to do next week if I get this gnome? If this gnome doesn't explode in the kiln, like it was, and then like passing out in the green room for a nap for 30 minutes.
Well, we've got another one back there.
Oh yeah, this green room's great in here.
So then, gnomes, urinals, teapots. Which was your favourite challenge? Where do you think you maybe came into your own, or it was that moment where you thought, I've nailed it?
I think like probably the gnomes would probably be my favourite brief, because I went into that so afraid of gnomes.
And clowns. Clowns are the other
clowns
things
and gnomes. I was just like, I remember them filming us for like our interviews in the morning, and they were like, right, how do you feel about today? And I was like, hate gnomes. Don't like gnomes, this is going to be awful. We've got 3 hours to make 3 gnomes. That's an hour a gnome. And everything's going to go, and they've got to stand up, and it's going to be terrible. And then, like, during the actual challenge, I had so much fun. I just got to, like, make 3 little fat little evil-looking gnome things. And I was like, the judges might not like it, because they do look a bit demonic, but I'm enjoying myself, so it's fine. And I got quite lucky that that they did really like the design and didn't find it completely creepy. And it was just, the room was just so colourful that day. Like, everybody was having so much fun and like putting little like butt cracks in the gnomes and like painting on like flowers and making like disco gnomes and like surfing gnomes. And it was just like, it was such a fun atmosphere. Everyone was making gnome puns, which was great.
Do you remember any of them?
I remember the Go Hard or Go Gnome one, because that one was particularly fun. I'm glad they got that one in the show. I was like, yes.
So with the gnomes then, you had something that you really weren't looking forward to, and it worked out.
Yeah.
Was there anything on the flip side that you thought, I'm fine with this, but in reality, it was a different experience?
Yeah, the cough, dragon slug thing that happened in week 2, I thought like, oh no, I'm not going to make it to Raku week. Like, when I went in, I was just like, when I got past week 1, I was like, oh, I'm still in, this is great. Now I want to make it to Raku week, because I think that was week 3, because I'd never done Raku before, and I was like, this is a great opportunity to get to like play with fire. So I just wanted to make it through week 2, and then when my piece exploded in the kiln, and like the dragon that I'd made, I hadn't stuck it onto the thing properly, and it just exploded and fell off. And I thought, oh no, this is it. This is like the thing that's going to send me home. But like, oh well, I'll just keep going with it, and I'll stick it on the side, and it'll be fine. And like looking back on it now, I'm like, I could have gotten away with just not putting it on there. But because the chest was actually, it came out really well. The glazes worked really well for me, which I felt like really happy about that, because you don't get time to like try out glazes and stuff beforehand. Like, I can't go home and fire my kiln because it takes like a day or 2 to fire, and I've only got like a day to practice, and half of that's taken up with doing washing. So it just like, it went really well in the end, but it didn't come out at all how I thought it was going to.
So you mentioned then that you got to Raku Week, and that was something, a process that was entirely new to you.
Yeah.
Were there other things that you kind of experienced as part of the television program that were new to the way that you work?
Absolutely. Like, I think my kiln at home is like, it's so small. I think it's about maybe this big on the inside. So I'd never made anything like half as big as I'd made on the show. Like, I think every week there was something bigger than I'd made the week before. I was like, right, now this is the biggest thing I've ever made. Oh, we're doing urinals? Okay, well, that's the biggest thing. And they can't possibly have something bigger for next week. Oh, it's a totem pole. One is, okay. So that was really great to be able to like have that space and the kiln space to like make bigger things and actually like prove to myself that I can make bigger things and make big structures. And I actually discovered that I really enjoy doing that. So that's something that I've like taken home from it. And just like getting to experiment with all the different glazes and underglazes. Like I'd never used underglazes before I went on the show, and now I use them all the time. Like just the colors on the blobs are just so like vibrant now. They used to be so sort of like, I'd use reactive glazes, which were nice, and they had like runs in them, but they were quite dull. And I think like I just love shoving color on everything now. I've found my passion for color finally.
So you mentioned then this using bigger kilns and being able to make bigger things for the first time. But you've also said to me previously that yourself and some of the contestants, when you're being interviewed as part of the program and you're being asked what could go wrong, could go wrong, you'd much rather be having what could go great.
What went well today?
So
what's the good parts?
that moment then of when things go into the kiln, what is going through your mind?
I'm always nervous about putting things in the kiln. Like I always go home and like for the night and think like, right, it'll be done by this time in the morning, and then I can maybe open it at this time, and I'll see if anything's like cracked or fallen apart or stuck to the kiln shelf or like gone wrong. But when I was on the show, it was like keeping me awake at night, because you would finish your piece and you'd put it in the kiln and you'd give it to Rose, who did an amazing job at taking care of everybody's pieces, and then they'd call you out for an interview and they'd go, right, so what went wrong today? Or like, so what could go wrong in the kiln? Like you did really well on this and this, but like, where are the possibilities? And I was always like rattle through my brain, like it could explode, it could like go to the kiln shelf. This bit, I'm not really sure if that's stuck on properly. This bit kind of cracked and I sort of covered it up, but I don't know if that's going to re-crack. Like, there was just always so many things. Like, you want to ask a ceramicist what could possibly go wrong. There's a lot of things.
So from what could possibly go wrong to what everybody wants to happen is to make Keith cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the badge of honor. I was like, if I get past week 1, I'll be so happy. If I get a Keith cry, I can go home. It's fine.
And does he explain to you what it was that set it off, or is he just a bit of a crybaby?
Well, I thought he was like, before I went there, I was like, maybe he's putting it on like a little bit, because it's for telly. Like maybe he's just like, maybe he just cries a bit and then for telly like puts it on. But he's just a really passionate guy. He's so genuine, and he's so like open like with you and about your pieces, and he really wants to see you do well. So I think when he resonates with something, it's really special to see him like tear up and have a little cry. It's like I made something that made somebody emote to something. I think he had a little cry at my the tiniest little thing on my bridge of Balgownie piece, my little lamppost, and I think he really liked the lines that I'd put on it. He said that it was just this like perfect little wonky lamppost, and he had a little cry, and I was like, perfect, done, stamp that.
Is that going to become your motif now and everything?
Yeah, record it on my phone.
Wonky lampposts everywhere. Yeah. So I think it's nice that you said that sort of Keith just wants to see everybody doing well. And I think from watching the programme, everybody would agree that there was that sense that everybody involved wanted everybody to do well.
Yeah.
There was no kind of sense that you were all arch enemies or clay wars or anything like that going on.
I think like applying for the show, I wouldn't go on like any other like reality show, I think, because this one, it just looked so genuine all the time. Like you see these shows where they're all like competing, there's like, that person messed up their thing, now I'm gonna do well. It was kind of like you're always like looking over your shoulder, like, oh, that person's struggling, like I'll go and help them. Or like there's a few times people help rush stuff to the drying room for me in the last few seconds, because I was always managed to like make up to the last 10 seconds, and I don't know how I managed it, because sometimes I was thinking, I'm way ahead of schedule, this is great, and then I'd add something extra, and then it would take me all the way up to the end, and I'm like running through with a board. But everybody was always like willing to help, or if like, especially like when we got into like the final sort of stages when everything was getting really intense, and we were making all these like huge things, everybody was like, oh, do you need help? Right, I'll come over, spare 5 minutes and help you like change this or hold this up while you like put more clay under there, or like, it was great. It was just like such a wholesome experience all around.
And are you keeping in touch?
Yeah, I've got everybody, we're all on like a WhatsApp group, and I swear we text like every day. Like everybody's always like, oh, this is what I'm up to today, or I made this, what do you think of it? Or like, oh, I'm down at the beach and I took some photos and I'll share them here. Like, it's great to have this like little sort of like pottery family like across the UK now. Like, I feel like I need to do a road trip and just go around everybody like and come all the way back again. It's brilliant.
Are there any plans to meet up then?
Yeah, I think like, one day when I've got like a few weeks, I'd love to just like drive around and see everybody. But we've got a few like events that we're all doing together. In July, we're doing Waterperry in Oxford, so we all applied and we're all going to be there. So that'll be like a great weekend that we can all spend together and have like a pottery weekend. And they came up to watch the final episode with me. For the last episode of the Throwdown, so we had like a school disco style sort of party, like a watch party. It was brilliant, yeah. I had no idea they were coming up as well. I was having a nice family dinner with my parents, and then all the potters just came in, and I just about had a heart attack, and my mum and dad had been planning this thing for me like for months, and I had no idea. And yeah, people keep doing things behind my back. You know?
Well, today, AJ.
Oh, no. It's happening again.
Oh, damn. We should have planned that. Right, next time. Oh, it's wonderful to know that what we saw on screen and the friendship and the camaraderie was absolutely genuine. So I think it's fair to say that winning the Throwdown has made you something of a household name. Yeah. You know, what is stardom like?
It's very bizarre. Like, I think it's really nice that, this is bizarre enough, but I have like people like stop me on the street to say hello now, and it's really bizarre. It's very weird. Like, it's a good weird though. Like, people say like, oh, I love your stuff. Like, what have you been making? Or like, I saw your stuff on the Throwdown. I really like it. Like, it's amazing like how many people have watched the show and have enjoyed it, and then have enjoyed me. Like, you could have like loads of people watch the show and then like, oh, it's just AJ, I don't want to talk to them. But like, so many people come up and say hi, and it's great. I've had somebody, I think it was the day after the final episode, I was sitting in a cafe with a friend and we went out for coffee, and there was somebody that walked past and did a sort of like in the window, and then looked in and was like, hi. I was like, hello.
It is me.
Having a coffee.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Now, in a moment, where I think we've got some questions that have come in that will be fielded towards you.
Cool.
But last thing before we move on to that, I think everybody would be just really interested to know what's next. What's the next big plan? More TV?
Maybe. Lots of blobs is the plan. I'm gonna like just every day in the studio. I just love going in and having my own space to just like to work, and having that community and like feeding off different people. I've got like events coming up. I've got loads of people asking for stuff, which is great because it just means I get to go and like sit in my little hobbit hole and like make creatures. So like I want to make bigger things. Like I've sort of set a challenge to myself at the moment to fill my little kiln. I'm like, well, if my kiln is so small, why don't I just fill it with just one big thing? So I've been working on like big blobs, and like I want to make sort of like garden feature blob sort of sculpture-y things, and it's just like I'm just really looking forward to having a play and getting that space and opportunity to like play and experiment with things and have that interest.
Well, it certainly sounds like the world is your oyster, so maybe an oyster-shaped blob. Something like that?
Perfect.
It could be.
Open it up, there's a little blob inside.
Well, I've certainly sat here for the last kind of 45 minutes or so,
Can't believe it's been
feeling
that
like
long.
we've just been having a delightful chat, and I hope everybody has enjoyed this. As I said, in a moment, some questions that have been submitted, but in the meantime, I think a huge round of applause for AJ.
Thank you. Wow.
Thank you both for that brilliant talk. We've got a few questions just from the students at Gray's.
Yes.
So the first question is, what have you learned about yourself since graduating that you wish you'd known at university?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me have a think about that. No, I think like since graduating, just the whole way through uni, I've just gotten so much more confident in myself. Like I think that whole like could always wish that I was more confident when I started, but like just that drive to like try new things and just go for it when you're kind of nervous about something. Like I was really nervous about going on placement when I was in uni, or I'd be really nervous about doing a 6-week project and we're like, oh, that's quite ambitious, maybe I should pare it down. I'll just go for it. Like just like try new things is what my advice would be. Like even if it seems scary, like it could go wrong, but it could also go like very right.
Thank you. The second question is, somebody said, the camaraderie between participants really came across in the recent Throwdown series. How important was that support to you?
It was like the best thing about the whole experience, I think. Like having those, like, I said to the other potters, like, it's like they'd gone across the UK and just picked out, like, oh yeah, you guys would be good friends, and like, yeah, this group is working. Like, when we all got there, we all had such like a great dynamic together just straight away. We were all chatting and we were all like having fun and like, oh, what do you do? Like, you worked on Doctor Who? What? Like, it was great, and like we had this like amazing sort of bond straight off the bat, no pun intended, and like everybody was just like helping each other, and like nobody was like, I'm doing a design for this week and I'm not going to show anyone just in case they steal my design. Like it was all like, oh, like look at my sketchbook, or passing sketchbooks around, like, oh, I really like that, I think you should do that, and well, that could use some work, or like, I'm having trouble with this design, like, what do you think of it, what could I change? Like, it was just having that sort of like, almost like a university studio sort of environment, but just really condensed into this like intense, like amazing experience. It was great.
Oh, that's lovely. The same person's asked, what's the magic ingredient to bringing that to fostering cultural communities and activities in Aberdeen?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I'm doing Aberdeen Ceramic Studio at the moment, as I think Libby mentioned, and that's kind of come from the same thing of like, we're like 6 potters that have come together, and we've got this vision of an open access studio in Aberdeen, and we really want to just bring that sort of like cultural like ceramic scene back into Aberdeen. We've got all these people coming into Gray's and like making amazing like things out of clay, and then sort of struggling to find places to fire their work, or struggling to find places to exhibit. And we just want to like open that up to all the graduates, all of the people that do short courses, anyone who's wanted to try ceramics at home but just like, you know, hasn't got a kiln or a wheel, or hasn't got a spare like $4,000 lying around to spend on materials. Like, I think it's going to be great. I'm really excited about it.
That's really exciting. One last question is about the differences between making sculptures that are more expressive and the ones that serve a function. Do you think that you favour one over the other, or do you quite enjoy having both of them?
I really do enjoy having both. Like, I think expressive sculpture kind of feels a little bit more intimidating for me, just because it's like almost, I don't have like a bowl to hide behind, if you know what I mean. Like when it's something functional, it's quite fun because I've got that base of like, this is a basic cup, and how can I play with that, and how can I make it more sort of like relatable, or how can I make it more fun? But when it's just like, I've got this blank open space to fill with a sculpture of some kind. It's almost like, I quite like having a brief to sort of inform what I'm making. So I almost just like give myself like a little brief, like I want to fill my kiln, or I want to make something with like 3 heads. How will I do that? Or I want to make something that like expresses how I was feeling today, like I woke up and I was really tired, and like how can I make the face look extremely tired, like or extremely happy, or like very goofy, or like put teeth in it in a way that's goofy and not creepy. That's been a challenge, doing things with teeth and not making them like really terrifying.
Thank you. That's all the questions. Thank you very much, AJ.
Thank you. Well,
I think you can do another round of applause.
thanks.